So what we're trying to do is make some predictions about what species aren't here at the moment but could arrive within the next 10 years and cause some of the problems that we're seeing with some of the other species. And then what can we do to prevent their arrival so that we don't see those problems? We reduce the impacts of non-native species.
So Helen, give me some examples of what these might be.
So we've been looking across all plants and animals in the marine and terrestrial environments. So they can be, of course, plants such as, for example, a grass called fountain grass, mosquitoes. We've been discussing a lot about mosquitoes. We've been thinking about some of the little scale insects that cause problems on plants. And we've been thinking about birds, about other vertebrates. So really many different species.
So Stephen, how important is it to actually work together and not in isolation?
Well, I think it's essential because we are tapping into the expertise from a lot of experts, and we're being extremely proactive. Remember that the aim of the horizon scanning exercise is to look at the invasive species that could affect Gibraltar in the future, forgetting about what's happening at the moment. So it puts us in a very good position to be able to scan any species in particular that could be problematic, particularly for Gibraltar.
Stephen, we've had some very real examples here in Gibraltar. We had the tiger mosquitoes, we've had that seaweed that everybody complained about last summer. So these things have a very real impact on people's lives.
It is a real problem, and there are other species that we're keeping an eye on. For example, as part of the work that's being carried out in this workshop, we're looking at species of fish, for example, pufferfish, that are known to be affecting parts of the eastern Mediterranean. We are also looking at mussels, for example, green mussels, which are having an impact on different parts of Europe. And that is exactly the type of information that we're looking at as part of the workshop.
Helen, when we think of invasive species, we normally think of something that somebody has actually brought somewhere else. But can you have something becoming indigenous through evolution?
So I think it's really important that we think about the definitions of these different species. And when we're talking about non-native species, we're talking about species that have been moved from one part of the world to another by human introduction. So that human part is really important. Then when we think about invasive non-native species, these are the ones that are actually causing some kind of damage. So, for example, in the UK, we have about 2,000 non-native species. Only about 15% cause any problem. If a species has been brought to a new part of the world by humans, it will always be considered non-native. But of course, with so much in conservation, people are an absolutely core part of it. And for some of the species, the decisions that will be made will be on the basis of people's perceptions and what they will tolerate or what they won't tolerate. And that's why it's so important for us all to work together. And it was really fantastic to hear your minister saying how important it is for people to understand the problems that invasive non-native species bring to a region. And some of those species will cause really far-reaching problems. But for some of the species, there will be some decisions to be made around. They will never be thought of in the ecological sense of being indigenous, but some will become naturalized and some people will enjoy seeing some of these new species. But what's really important is we get to the core of those species that are really going to be the most troublesome and we prevent their arrival in the first place.